on an all-new Dr. Phil. He had custody of their son.
You gotta go back to your mom.
I don't wanna go.
She claims he blackmailed her.
She said that you asked for thousands of dollars just to spend an afternoon with him.
That's absolutely untrue.
He's brainwashing him. What do I do that is so bad that makes me a bad parent?
Try to take my other parent away from me.
You think he's abusing him?
I do.
Mentally, emotionally, physically?
All three.
Did you tell him that his mother wanted to abort him?
Yes, I did.
Man up and handle this adult to adult. You don't have to pull some kid in here. How cowardly is that? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Take a look at this home video sent to us by the father in today's story.
It's time to go, buddy.
No, no.
You gotta go back to your mom.
I don't wanna go.
Son, you gotta go back.
No.
Brian says that happens every time he has to return his son to his ex-wife Elizabeth's home after visitation. Now, Elizabeth claims the only reason that happens is because Brian is an evil, abusive, manipulative liar who has brainwashed their son against her and told him that she wanted to abort him. Now, at this point, she says she wouldn't be surprised if he convinces the 14-year-old to kill her in her sleep.
I wanna go.
My ex-husband is brainwashing my son. Brian is nothing short of evil. He makes it very difficult for my son and I to have a relationship.
I wish it was. Me live with my dad. Me seeing you every other weekend.
My son believes all the negative things against me. He feels like by loving me, he's betraying his dad.
When aren't we angry at each other?
The things I do is because I love you and because I'm trying to protect you.
What are you protecting?
What am I protecting you from?
Yes.
From your dad.
No, you're not.
My relationship with my son, it's very strained because I feel like he's angry and hostile towards me. Brian will tell my son things like, your mother abandoned you. Your mother doesn't love you. He has told my son, your mother wanted to abort you when she was pregnant with you. None of that is true. Brian is abusive. When Brian and I were married, we were in an argument and he threw me onto the ground in the kitchen and he just started kicking me in the ribs and pushed me up against the wall. He held the knife to my throat. I had PTSD from all the abuse that I had endured from Brian, and that caused me to make some really bad choices. I did try to commit suicide. Another time that I did have a breakdown, Brian was awarded full custody of my son. Brian is very dangerous. Brian was arrested for stalking his ex-girlfriend, and that's how I got custody. I try to co-parent with him. Brian gets very aggressive and hostile. Brian is so influential to my son that he could come in at any time and hurt me. There have been 2 times where I woke up with my son just staring right in my face. This is the knife that my son brought back from his dad's house. My son's bigger than me. I am concerned that Brian might get mad at me and then tell my son to sneak in on your mom while she's asleep and kill her.
Well, Brian says he doesn't need to brainwash their son because the boy can see for himself that his mother is a vindictive, unstable liar who, according to Brian, has overdosed 5 times.
I'm not brainwashing my son at all. He's 14 years old. He's very smart. He sees what's happening. He knows what's going on.
Do I want to live with my dad? Yes.
I don't bash his mom, but I'm not going to make him think that she's the good fairy, even though in my opinion she may be the wicked witch, but I'm not going to tell him that. I had full custody of my son from the time he was 2 until he was almost 12. And due to some underhanded conniving, she got custody. I don't believe Elizabeth is stable at all. Elizabeth overdosed. We know of 4 times, and we believe there's a 5th time that was covered up. She was actually committed 3 separate occasions. At one point, she even threatened to kill herself and my son by driving off the road. I believe that my son is in danger with her. Elizabeth voluntarily gave up parental rights and did not speak to him for years. No happy birthday, no Merry Christmas. Someone that would sign away their rights to a child was selfish. Elizabeth, over the years, has made numerous false reports before our divorce was over and after. She's made false police reports. I basically lost custody because of the lies of Elizabeth and my ex-girlfriend.
I want to live with my dad. You sent him in jail for no reason.
Now my son lives with Elizabeth and her current husband, which he's not happy there at all. When I have to take Kim back to his mother's house, it's a chore.
It's time to go, buddy.
No,
You gotta go back to your mom.
I don't want to go.
My son's relationship with his mom is very strained. They don't get along very well. I don't believe that Elizabeth has the motherly qualities that most women have. I'm one of millions of fathers that is fighting an uphill battle to get custody.
I want to have it on record to both of you here before we start that the stakes for which we are interacting today are much higher than you might think. And for that reason, I want to encourage you to take a beat, take a minute, and think about the approach that you want to use in having the conversations that we're about to have. I'll start with you. So you believe that Brian is brainwashing your son?
Yes, sir.
Because brainwashing is a very serious term. Brainwashing is something where you take someone, you hold them captive, you control food, drink, freedom, sleep. You do a lot of things to actually take over their mind and begin to program them to lose contact with reality and start to believe certain things.
I think he withholds love and emotion from him to make him to try to I do feel like he's brainwashing.
Okay, so you're all in. You believe that he is actually exercising mind control over your son.
I do.
You think he's abusing him?
I do believe he's abusing him, yes.
In what way? Besides starving him and sleep depriving him and relentlessly programming his thinking?
Well, I don't think he's starving him, but I do.
Well, no, I defined it for you, and you affirmed that's what he's doing.
Right.
And so now you're saying he's abusing him. So
Right.
abuse can be mental, emotional, or physical.
I believe all three, based on what I've been told by my son and things that I've read and things that I've experienced myself.
Okay. And in what way is he physically abusing him?
Well, he has gotten angry at my son because he knocked something out of a closet and then grabbed the board that fell and hit my son with it. Along with that, he has hit him on his head, in his stomach, on his back when he's trying to either discipline him, or he's been angry at him to the point to where my son would have to drop to the floor to try to avoid being hit.
You believe that she, in fact, is manipulating this situation and withholding and obstructing your access to your son?
100%, without question, she's doing that. Has been. I had the video where she had restricted my phone, where I couldn't call him.
We're sorry. The number you have dialed has calling restrictions that have prevented the completion of your call. Your call cannot be completed at this time.
Okay, so that's you dialing the number, and it says you can't complete this because it's been restricted. Your number can't go through at this point.
That's correct.
Your visitation orders at this point are you're to have him every other weekend, 3 weeks in the summer, and you'll be able to call him at any time.
That's correct. I'm supposed to have unlimited access on the phone with him.
Right.
But she doesn't allow that. It's sporadic.
Okay. Who blocked those numbers?
I blocked him during school hours, and that's it.
Well, I want to look at some text examples where Brian accuses Elizabeth of not allowing him to speak to the son. Brian, our son said you prevented him from answering again 2 days again. He needs to call me now. Elizabeth, I have not prevented him from anything. I told him he can't talk to you at 8:30 p.m. tonight. You both know what time he can talk. You were trying to contact him at 8:30.
Maybe that one day, but even at
What's wrong with 8:30?
Well, when we get home, he has to eat dinner, do his homework, take a bath, and get ready for bed. And so I just told Brian that the best time for him to call was at 6 o'clock. We were at home, and I would be making dinner at that time.
Okay, but hold on. That's not what the court ordered. The court didn't order that you could specify a specific moment in time for his father to be able to call him. You said that he can call him and have access to him without obstruction from you. 8:30 is not an egregious time to be calling your child.
The reason was at those times is when he was usually taking a shower or getting ready for bed. That's why I did it.
When I would call at 6 o'clock, for example, if I had a business call come in and I had to answer it, which usually took a minute or two, and then I would call right back, and she wouldn't let him answer the phone. And when I would send her a text, I've got text to show it, she said, oh, no, you had your contact with him. That was it.
No, that's not true, Brian.
That's 100%
It
true.
is not. I don't restrict his
text to
calls. He
prove
has his own phone.
No, wait a minute. You just said I don't restrict his calls. You have blocked the phone calls and said 8:30 is an inappropriate time to be calling a teenager.
Well, I block the phone calls during the day.
So you do restrict his phone
I
calls?
do. You're right. But during school hours, I have to restrict them because he and his sister and his mother will call and give him information about what's going on in court or what's happening in his criminal case.
You restrict them because you don't like the content of the phone calls.
Well, I think that they're bad.
It's just absolute control.
It's
That's
trying
all
to
it
be
is.
structured.
All right, we're going to take... No. Yeah, I was getting ready to go to break, but... I mean, do you really think that it's not apparent that you are, in fact, restricting these phone calls because you don't like what is being said on the phone calls?
When I'm doing it, I feel like it's because of the time, but I do not like what is said when they talk. So yes, I believe that it's probably both, and maybe I hide behind the timing of it.
Thank you. Elizabeth claims that Brian shows their teenage son court documents and even told him that she wanted to abort him. Now, Brian says he simply answers all of his son's questions truthfully. Well, we're going to talk about that after the break.
It's impossible to co-parent with Brian.
We have our custody exchanges at the Sheriff's Department because of Elizabeth's drama.
It has always been very volatile and hostile. Brian loses his temper.
She says that she's scared.
And later...
What you're implying that
Well,
I may...
no, I'm not implying anything. I'm saying you sat down with your son and had a discussion about the fact that his mother wanted to abort him.
Yes, I did.
He kept you for 2 weeks when he was supposed to bring you back.
I was telling him to keep me.
The current custody agreement is that she has primary custody and I have standard visitation.
Brian gets visitation with him every other weekend and then 3 weeks in the summer. His weekend visitation with his dad has ended and we meet at the Sheriff's Department. When Brian and I have done exchanges, it has always been very volatile and hostile. Brian loses his temper and would call names. He has spit at my vehicle.
We have our custody exchanges at the Sheriff's Department because of basically Elizabeth's drama. No one has ever seen me be aggressive to her, but she says that she's scared.
It's impossible to co-parent with Brian. If I send him a simple text message to remind him of something, it always ends with him threatening me or some sort of rant.
When Elizabeth had signed away her rights, that was it. I never had to let her see him again. Elizabeth, on a couple of different occasions, had written suicide notes. She absolutely said I was a great father and I would take care of my son. I want the truth to be told.
Well, here's what she's told us. She says that she knew that their son was being negatively impacted by all the court battles, so after losing practically all of her parental rights, she says she decided she needed to do what was best for her son and just sign over full parental rights to you.
That's not exactly how it come about. What mother bear leaves a cub if she thinks the cub's in danger?
Well, I'm not asking you to decide what was in her mind. I'm just asking you what happened sequentially. She signed over all the parental rights to you.
She did.
So you had them.
Yes.
From 2010 till 2015.
Yes.
She did not have her son from 2010 until 2015.
No, I let her start seeing him again before that because she texted me out of the clear blue one day, and I agreed to meet with her to talk about it.
Did you attempt to blackmail her during that time?
No.
Because she said that you asked for thousands of dollars just to spend an afternoon with him.
That's absolutely untrue. And in fact, when we did sit and talk, and because I didn't think it was right to keep her out of his life if she had gotten better. But I even let her pay less child support than the court ordered. If it was about money, why would I do that?
She said in 2013 that you finally allowed her to have weekend visitations in exchange for $600 and writing an affidavit saying that you were a good father.
That's not true at all. There was something coming up with some of his sports events, I think, and I asked her to help cover the costs. Of course, I did that. But as far as blackmailing her, absolutely not.
Brian, you asked me to call Terry and tell her not to fight you in court 50-50, to give you 50-50. You told me that if I would pay you $400 in child support, and then you also said that I had to write an affidavit because you were fighting her in court for the baby.
No, we discussed those things, but I didn't say that was
Well, we have
condition.
an affidavit in evidence here. We have the affidavit that you wrote.
Right.
Why did you write it?
Well, it was one of the 3 requirements for me to start seeing my son again.
You've got full custody and parental rights at this point, but then you went back to court in 2015 because you were arrested for aggravated stalking of this ex-girlfriend, Terry.
I was arrested for stalking at the police department because I went to the police department to find out why they hadn't arrested her for assault, which there was photographic and video evidence of her assaulting me.
But you were arrested for aggravated assault.
I was arrested.
And pursuant to that, then you got custody back.
Correct.
You say that Terry conspired with Elizabeth, and then Terry and Elizabeth conspired with a third woman to paint this picture of you being a bad guy, a stalker, an abuser.
I know how it sounds, and if I was looking from the outside in, I would think the same thing that you may be thinking. But
Well, you don't know what I'm thinking. I'm just saying
true.
I'm just summarizing what you're telling me, that the police department and 3 women you've been in relationships with, you're saying have all conspired to paint this picture of you as a bad guy.
They absolutely did. Most recent girl I had dated, seriously, she's the one that actually worked with Terry and Elizabeth. She accused me of not letting her leave my house, kidnapping, pointing a gun at her. I found out that they were going to arrest me, then I left. They launched a massive statewide manhunt. They shut down the courthouses, they shut down the schools, they shut down several local businesses looking for me.
And later,
It wouldn't have been fair not to explain things to him. Then he would think Dad's hiding something.
man up and handle this adult to adult. You don't have to pull some kid in here. How cowardly is that?
I went to jail because of lies that Elizabeth and ex-girlfriends told the police. Elizabeth has told DFACS that I abused our son on numerous occasions. It's a complete lie. Terry is an ex-girlfriend, and I have a daughter with her. Terry and I were going back to court for custody. She hadn't accused me of stalking her. They charged me with aggravated stalking. Never stalked Terry. The most recent girl I had dated, seriously, she's the one that actually worked with Terry and Elizabeth. When I tried to break up with her, the threat started. She continually told me that if I left her, she would make all these false charges, or she would do all this and make sure I lost my kids. On the day of my arrest, she accused me at the police department of not letting her leave my house, kidnapping, pointing a gun at her, and basically tackling her. I was charged with kidnapping, with assault, with battery. I found out that they were going to arrest me, then I left. I had no intention of fleeing the country or anything like that, but I needed time to call an attorney to see what I needed to do. They launched a massive statewide manhunt. They had helicopters. They had the FBI, the GBI involved in searching for me. They shut down the courthouses. They shut down the schools. They shut down several local businesses. They had roads blocked, looking for me over all of these false charges that none of them were true. I voluntarily turned myself in. I was in jail for a month and a half. All charges were dismissed at a preliminary hearing except for 3, and the jury found me not guilty. I'd never been in trouble with the law until Elizabeth and Terry really got together and started planning these false charges. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Have you shown your son court documents?
He found one of the arbitration awards in a box that had some pictures. I've coached football, baseball, basketball. He was going through some pictures, and some of the documents were mixed in that box, and he found the arbitration agreement, the one that she keeps talking about, and he asked me about it. And when he asked me about it, then I did elaborate on what was in it, because it did say she wished she would have had an abortion and other things, where she admitted a forced suicide attempt, and I did.
You said I'm not going to lie to him, and I don't bash her all the time. According to you, it's true, and you're going to tell him the truth.
I did have the conversation after he found it. Absolutely. He is old enough to know what's really going on. If I had not explained, he might have had worse thoughts. Well, my son's lived through it. He doesn't need me to tell him. He's been there.
No, he doesn't need you to tell him. Do you sense that I'm concerned about that?
Well, absolutely. I can sense that, but
do you think that concern is well-founded?
If it was to the point where I was doing what you're implying, that I may...
No, I'm not implying anything. I'm saying you sat down with your son and had a discussion about the fact that his mother wanted to abort him during her pregnancy. That either happened or it didn't.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did you then tell us, I'm going to tell him the truth? He's entitled to the truth.
Yes, I did.
I very much disagree with that. I think that is building a case, leveraging against her in your favor. And I'm not the only one. There was a court order on 5/19/17, quote, the court is very concerned with father's discussions with the son, re the court cases.
I understand, but what do you do when a child asks you about it? You just say, well, I can't talk about that? And so in his mind, he's wondering what's going on?
That would be a great response. Well, that would be a great response. A great response would be, son, let me tell you, there are certain things that are kind of adult issues that you need not be burdened with. And I'm really sorry that I left this box of pictures and documents sitting out for you to find and read, and that should never have happened, and I apologize for putting that out to intrude in your psyche, because you have enough going on. Your mother loves you, I love you, and just know that, and let's go play catch.
I would love to have been in a situation where it could have been that way. It wouldn't have been fair not to explain things to him, because then he would think Dad's hiding something from me. Dad's not being up front with me.
Well, hell, man up and handle this adult to adult. You don't have to pull some kid in here. How cowardly is that? Brian's ex-girlfriend, Terry, believes Brian has abused all of his children, and she says she's witnessed him manipulating his son into hating Elizabeth. We'll be right back. Closed captioning provided by...
Brian became abusive to my son early on. What about all the things you told me about what happened with you and your dad?
Yeah, he spanked me sometimes.
Anything else?
No.
What about when your dad used to hit you so bad you had to fall to the ground?
When was this?
So that didn't happen?
No.
He was scared to use the restroom. He told me that his dad would get really angry if he clogged up the toilet and would spank him really hard because he used too much toilet paper.
He would spank me. And yes, I did get scared because he spanked me.
Those are the reasons that I fought for you.
Yeah, and I wish you'd stop.
Do y'all have no boundaries? Do you have no boundaries at all?
I feel like I do. I mean, I really feel like I am trying to fight for him, and I know
Do you think that his conversation that he had with these court papers and the abortion and suicides and all was inappropriate?
Yes.
But you think the conversation you just had with your son on that tape in the car was appropriate?
In the full context of the conversation, I felt like it was appropriate, but no, I understand that when I'm trying to ask him questions, sometimes it sounds like I'm trying to get him to talk about things he doesn't want to talk about, and I know he doesn't want to talk about them. I know that he wants this to be over with. I know that he wants all of this to be done.
Well, we have a full, you say in context, okay, we have the context. Let's just listen to the whole thing.
Don't you want to have a good relationship with both parents?
Yeah, and I wish it was me living with my dad and me seeing you every other weekend. You take my phone away from me.
I have never done that. As a matter of fact, I'll let you use my phone to call your dad when you're grounded.
Sometimes.
He kept you for 2 weeks when he was supposed to bring you back.
I was telling him to keep me.
What do I do that is so bad that makes me a bad parent?
Try to take my other parent away from me. Since the beginning, I told you not to fight in court. Yeah, he spanked me sometimes.
Anything else?
No.
What about when your dad used to hit you so bad you had to fall to the ground?
When was this?
So that didn't happen?
No.
Those are the reasons that I fought for you.
Yeah, and I wish you'd stop. When aren't we angry at each other?
The things I do is because I love you and because I'm trying to protect you. And
What are you protecting me from?
what am I protecting you from?
Yes.
From your dad.
No, you're not. Do I want to live with my dad? Yes.
Seriously? Who was videotaping that?
The camera guy.
My point is, you're doing that when you know you're being watched. What are you doing when you aren't? You know what frustrates me so much? I have no doubt you love your son. I have no doubt that you love your son. You two are damaging this young man with what you're doing here. You think you're winning some popularity contest in the moment. You are not. I want to take a look again at what Brian filmed before a custody handoff. Let's take a look at this.
It's time to go, buddy.
No.
You gotta go back to your mom's.
No. I want to go.
How long has this hitting you stuff been going on?
A while.
Then what does your mama say?
Nothing. She don't freaking care.
Son, you gotta go back.
No.
Okay, now to be clear, the hitting that he's talking about is not you hitting him, it's a bully.
Correct.
If you two were handling this maturely, then these would be things that instead of filming his pain, you two could talk about and problem solve instantly.
She specifically said, I'm going to destroy you, and I've got all the recordings. I sent some to your producers. They've got them. This happened. This was a setup.
Closed captioning provided by...
Brian believes that myself and his 2 exes are conspiring against him.
Anytime anyone stands up to Brian, he thinks that they're plotting against him.
That is 100% nonsense. He cannot take ownership of his behavior. He has issues with women.
He just thinks that we're out to get him just because we want justice for what he's done to us.
Brian believes his ex-wife, Elizabeth, conspired with his ex-girlfriend, Terry, to make up false stalking charges to gain custody of their son. Terry says no one conspired about anything because Brian is a lying, manipulative stalker. Take a look.
I have a 5-year-old daughter with Brian. It is a life of hell dealing with Brian. He's manipulative, he's a liar, has zero respect for women. Brian is a monster. I do feel that Brian is brainwashing my daughter against me. Brian tells her she's not supposed to love me. My daughter told me that Brian told her to take a knife and stab me in the eye. I suspect Brian broke my daughter's arm. Brian had my daughter for a weekend visitation. I believe he jerked her by her arm and broke it. He badmouths me and Elizabeth to the children any chance that he gets. One time, Brian accidentally pocket dialed and left a voicemail. It recorded Brian yelling and screaming and cussing at his son. Brian was yelling at him, saying that his mother doesn't care about him. Brian said, "You sided with the woman that abandoned you." I am very scared of Brian. He has followed me. He was stalking me. The first incident, I passed Brian on the road. He turned around and started following me. They arrested him for aggravated stalking. The charges were dropped. Brian gets away with everything, and every time that he gets away with something else, it makes him that much more cocky. I live in fear every day. I watch over my shoulder. I pray he won't hurt me or my daughter ever again.
You know, I said, I wonder, I saw what she was doing when the camera was on, and she knew it. I shudder to think what she's doing when the camera isn't there and she isn't being watched. We just inadvertently, with a pocket dial,
I was hurt.
Got a glimpse into what you're saying, and you're certainly disparaging her.
I did at that point.
At the time.
I was heartbroken. I couldn't believe that he had done that. I couldn't believe that he had betrayed me after all we had been through. And I was wrong. He didn't deserve that. I was out of line, and I apologized to him for that.
Well, we have a statement from Brian's other ex-girlfriend that says, "I have never conspired with Elizabeth or Terry on anything. The charges I filed against Brian are 100% true. Brian wouldn't let me leave his house and was choking me while holding a gun. He threatened to kill me as well as multiple judges and attorneys. The only reason I told Brian on the recording that his exes pushed me into filing charges is because he forced me to say it. I had no choice. He threatened to send inappropriate photos and videos of me to my job and family members. Brian was mentally, verbally, and physically abusive in our relationship. I have also personally witnessed him abusing his son. Brian regularly called his son worthless and an idiot, and I've seen him smack his head, pinch his arms, and one time throw sunglasses at his head that caused his lip to bleed."
As she started telling me that Elizabeth and Terry were wanting her to go file these reports.
I never once spoke to her.
I started recording conversations with this woman for weeks, months, before this came to fruition. And she specifically said, "I'm going to go tell him you did this. I'm going to make you hurt like you've hurt me. You don't want to marry me. You don't want to spend time with me. I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to help Terry and Elizabeth. We're going to take your kids. You're not going to have them." And I've got all the recordings. I sent some to your producers. They've got them. This happened. This was a setup.
You must be a bad picker.
I am. Listen, I must have flaws too if I wind up with these kind of people. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but this really happened.
With both of his parents' permission, we spoke with Brian and Elizabeth's 14-year-old son. What does he think about what's going on here? We're going to find that out after the break.
I do not like living with my mom. My mom betrayed me. She's trying to get my dad out of my life. I feel like I have not bonded with my mom. I talk bad to her.
What do I do that is so bad that makes me a bad parent?
Try to take my other parent away from me.
My son has actually run away from home just one time.
I know for sure that my son has run away from Elizabeth twice. The first time they were at a gas station, he got out of the car and ran away from her. Another time he ran away and he hid in the woods. He called me crying, very upset that his mother had hit him. He was tired of living there and he ran away and he hid in the woods. And I said, "Son, if you're afraid, call 911.
My son told them he did not want to live with me. He wanted to live with his dad. The police brought him back home. My heart says Brian put him up to it, had him believing they'd be able to go back to Brian's house.
I've not encouraged him to run away. I have told my son that if he is ever in a situation where he feels threatened or that he may be harmed, to get out of there.
Well, Brian and Elizabeth's 14-year-old son says he hates living with his mother and says he's sick and tired of her trying to get his dad thrown in prison.
Since the beginning, I told you not to fight in court. I do not like living with my mom. I feel like I have not bonded with my mom. Most of the time, I do not get along with my mom. I talk bad to her. She grounds me for some stupid reason. One time, she grounded me from talking to my dad. Like, she took my phone away from me.
What do I do that is so bad that makes me a bad parent?
Try to take my other parent away from me. My mom betrayed me. She's trying to get my dad out of my life. She had my dad arrested. She said there was a laser pointed right at her. She wasn't even outside. And then my dad was FaceTiming me and showed me that he was miles and miles away from me. I want to live with my dad. I want to have it like it used to be, living with him, having friends come over just about every weekend. I love it. My relationship with my dad is legit TV show, father and son. It's like an honest, true life.
Do you have any questions for me?
I just, I wish that I'm sure we don't have time, but I wish I could elaborate on this other conspiracy. It's trying to make me the bad guy here.
What do you take responsibility for?
Well, I lost my cool in that conversation. Maybe I should not have talked to him about, when he was asking me questions about that. I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes. My ultimate goal is, my main concern is my son.
Do you have any questions for me?
I do. My question is, what can I do to be better so that I'm not affecting my son in a negative way? Because I know I've made a lot of bad decisions, and I know I've made mistakes.
Yeah, so what are they?
Well, for one, I signed the paper away to give away my rights. I did that thinking that I was bringing him peace, but I didn't. I'm also talking to him about his dad in a way that I thought was beneficial, but it's not. I see that in those recordings. And I've given him a mother that, I've been the type of mother that's made decisions that most kids would look at as a negative sign. And I don't want him growing up thinking, why was I so bad that my mother didn't love me? Or why was I so bad? Or what was wrong with me? I don't want to do that. I don't want him to think that I've done something that put him in those positions. And so I need to do better. And I need to know what to do better so that he and I can have a positive relationship.
We'll be right back. Closed captioning provided by... Well, the state of Georgia, you're from Georgia, state of Georgia recognizes a child's right to choose. At 14, until 2008, the child had the right to choose. They could just say, I want to be here or there, and the court, based on legislature, went along with that. In 2008, that changed. In 2008, it became presumptive law, which means that at 14, the child can state which parent they want to be with, and the court presumes that that's what should happen unless the court determines that that's not in the child's best interest. And the judge considers 17 different factors. And then they look at a lot of different things. One is they do a home study. They look at what kind of parent that parent was when the marriage was intact. And it looks at how much that parent is effectively co-parenting with the other parent. Whether that parent supports a fully functioning, nurturing relationship with the other parent. Your son's made it very clear he wants to be with you. And so the court presumes that that's what should happen unless they see among these 17 factors reasons that that's not in the child's best interest. And right now, you would get a 0 on several of them. You would get a 0 on several of them. I said the stakes for which you're playing here are very high. That's the high stakes here. Neither one of you are demonstrating to be in this child's best interest. Now, I'm a mandated reporter, which means it is my duty, if I see a situation where a child is in harm's way, is not in the best interest, it is my duty to do one of two things. I either have to report that within a 24-hour period, or I have to put something in place to remediate that situation. And I will make those arrangements for each of you and someone that will help you co-parent this situation, or not. You tell me what you want to do.
Of course, we've got to get past this. I agree.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. I want to thank all of my guests today. We will see you next time.